Council meeting for the town of Orangeville for Monday, February 14th. Could we have a motion to approve the agenda, please? Councillor Post, second by Councillor Andrews. All in favor?
Yes.
Any disclosures of direct or indirect pecuniary interests? Seeing none, can we have a motion to move into closed, please? And the reason for that is to approve the closed council minutes of January the 10th, 2022, and for a personal matter regarding Business and Economic Development Advisory Committee. Also, a confidential verbal report from Colleen Butler, Town Solicitor. Also, a confidential verbal report, again, from Colleen Butler regarding vaccination policy. Those are the reasons we're going into closed. May I have a motion, please? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, second by Councillor Peters. All in favor?
Yes.
Okay, we'll now close off this and jump on to the other link. Thank you. All right, folks, this is a continuation of Orangeville Town Council meeting. We had a closed session starting at 6:30. We're now back into open. This is the council meeting for February the 14th, 2022. Ms. Pormancherry, could we have the national anthem, please?
O Canada, our home and native land, true patriot love in all of us command. With glowing hearts we see thee rise, the true north strong and free. From far and wide, O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. God keep our land glorious and free. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee. O Canada, we stand on guard for thee.
Thank you to David Nairn, the Artistic Director of Theatre Orangeville, for that rendition of our national anthem. We would like to acknowledge the traditional territory of the Anishinaabe people, including the Ojibwe, Potawatomi, and Odawa of the Three Fires Confederacy. This meeting is being aired on public television and/or streamed live and may be taped for later public broadcast or webcast. Your name is part of the public record and will be included in the minutes of this meeting. Any member of the public connecting via telephone is reminded to press *6 to mute and unmute. Please remain muted until the chair requests comments or questions from the public. Earlier this evening, we had a closed session, and I'm going to read our rise and report coming out of that session. The recommendation that the January 10th, 2022 closed minute meetings be received, and that the Business and Economic Development Advisory Committee Composition Report CMS 2022-002 regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, be received, and that confidential verbal report from Colleen Butler, Town Solicitor, public office holders regarding personal matters about an identifiable individual, including municipal or local board employees, labor relations or employee negotiations, advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose be received, and the confidential verbal report from Colleen Butler, Town Solicitor, vaccination policy related to advice that is subject to solicitor-client privilege, including communications necessary for that purpose be received, and that staff proceed as directed. We have a motion on that, please. Deputy Mayor McIntosh, second by Councillor Peters. All in favor? Thank you. Moving on to item 10 on our agenda, we have the adoption of minutes of previous council meetings. Those are the minutes of January 24th, 2022 council meeting, February 7th public meeting, and the February 8th special meeting of council. Could we have a motion to receive those minutes, please, and approve them? Councillor Andrews, second by Councillor Post. All in favor? Thank you. All right, moving on to item 11. This is presentations, petitions, and delegations. 11.1. Welcoming Councillor Sherwood to speak about Heritage Orangeville and the Heritage Community Recognition Awards. Councillor Sherwood.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to share my screen for one moment.
Okay.
Okay, hopefully you can see that now.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. So Ontario Heritage Week, February 21st to 27th, 2022, encourages municipalities to highlight heritage, diverse traditions, and culture expressions. Heritage Orangeville wishes to acknowledge the contributions of the town's residents each February with the Heritage Community Recognition Award. This award recognizes, promotes, and encourages the preservation, ongoing maintenance, restoration, rehabilitation, renovation, and/or adaptive reuse of heritage properties. The committee honors homeowners who have invested considerable time, effort, resources, and care into their heritage property. This year, Heritage Orangeville Committee is proud to present the award to 2 deserving recipients for their thoughtful approach to exterior restoration. The first award is for 33 First Street, owned by Elizabeth Thretnia and Jack DiBerganito. Assessment records indicate lots 6, 7, and 8 in 1877 was valued at $1,600, owned by General Merchants George Eastman and Kearns. The recent renovations done to this home include the side addition to the north of the residence, beautifully complementing the 19th century Italianate style of architecture. The local red brick is enhanced by the deep charcoal color of the decorative shutters and trim. The second award is for 12 York Street, owned by Thomas and Susan Kidd. This home was originally built by John Rowan and his brother in 1888 at a cost of $500. Another Italianate structure, the committee recognizes the considered approach to color on the exterior trim and the well-preserved supporting brackets, buff brick details, as well as the addition of the stone path. Congratulations to these well-deserving recipients from Heritage Orangeville and Town Council, and we will be contacting the recipients to receive their certificates. And that's it.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Sherwood.
So stop sharing my screen here.
Yeah, there's been some marvelous renovations of residential and commercial buildings in town. So I think there's some other candidates out there for recognition as well going forward. Thanks, Councillor Sherwood. All right, moving on to 11.2, we have Ms. Peggy Bond wishes to speak about vaccination policy. Ms. Bond, as we had told you before, we have 5 minutes for our delegations. So you have 5 minutes, ma'am. Go right ahead.
Okay. Thank you, Orangeville Town Councillors and Mayor Brown, for granting me 5 more minutes to speak today about your current vaccine policy. Before I start, I'd like to set the scene. So in usual times, we would be in council chambers, and so I want you to imagine that while I'm the only one speaking to you here today from my home office, that we are in chambers, and the entire room is packed with town residents, staff, families, concerned citizens, and supporters of this cause. In fact, the crowd is so big, it is overflowing into the halls around chambers and even onto the sidewalks. I am here for my fellow volunteers, town staff, and all others who have been or will very shortly be dismissed due to this policy. I am also here for those workers who gave in to this coercive policy and completed their entire vaccination course solely to keep their jobs in order to feed and house their families, not because they felt it was in their best medical interest. I've had many people reach out to me, and for those of you that are here today with me, virtually and in spirit, I thank you. So I hope you've all had a chance to read the letter that I sent in response to the document that was forwarded to me on from Andrea on your behalf that summarized your rationale for instituting this vaccine policy. For the public participating in this meeting, it is attached to the agenda, and I recommend you read it for some details and context. It is clear from the analysis of that document that Council is not able to demonstrably justify the purpose of their policy, which was that vaccination against COVID-19 improves workplace safety by, quote, preventing the spread of COVID-19 and variants, end quote. And Council was also unable to demonstrably provide expert support for a mandatory vaccination policy. This was echoed today by Dr. Kieran Moore, Chief Medical Officer of Health of Ontario, who recommended lifting vaccine passports due to the inefficacy of the current vaccines at preventing transmission. At this point, I would like to remind you or perhaps educate you that as a healthcare professional working for over 20 years in direct patient care and governed by the Regulated Health Professions Act of Ontario, that vaccination is a medical intervention. It requires medical evidence-based indication and informed consent without any form of coercion or restriction. Private industries and government have no authority to impose and or coerce vaccination with restrictions on fundamental freedoms and liberties, including the loss of employment or threat of the same. So before I ask my quick question, I'd like to sum up my concerns with your current policy. Number one, it does not increase safety in the workplace by reducing the transmission of COVID-19. Two, it violates and breaks several laws, acts, and codes, and our Charter of Rights and Freedoms. Three, it is not supported by your referenced experts. They do not support the violation of informed consent and the dismissal of employees based on vaccination status. Four, it will increase costs to the town and taxpayers through potential lawsuits, costs in rehiring and training new employees, and likely cause a loss of service to the people and taxpayers of Orangeville. So this decision to rescind, the decision to rescind this redundant policy rests only on your shoulders now. This policy creates and supports division of the citizens of this community. So I'm asking, will you take this step forward to do your part as leaders in this community to end the division that is so apparent, not just in Orangeville, but across our entire country? It is time for all of us to heal together and move forward together. So I am imploring you, and I'm asking you on behalf of all of the people in Town Hall today with me, will you reconsider and rescind this policy?
Is that the extent of your presentation, Ms. Bond?
That is my first question. My second question depends on your answer to my first question.
You have 50 seconds, ma'am.
Okay, so I would like an answer to that question, but I would also like to remind you, if the answer to that is no, your obligation under the Ontario Human Rights Code, which is in the letter, that you should regularly review and update to match the your policies to match the most current pandemic conditions and to reflect up-to-date evidence and public health guidance, which based on Dr. Kieran Moore's presentation today should make you rescind that policy effective today. So that's the extent of my presentation. I guess the other question was, are you going to hire people back once you rescind this policy? I'm curious for all the people that reached out to me who've lost their jobs and volunteers like me.
Right. Okay. Well, that's your 5 minutes. So thank you, Ms. Bond. We have over 320 employees in the town of Orangeville, and we had a 100% uptake on the vaccine for all of our full-time employees. Over 90% of Orangeville residents took the vaccine path. They were not coerced. They made the decisions based on their own fact-finding and evidence. We're certainly not going to be debating this tonight. So as of this moment, the answer is no. I imagine in the future there'll be some discussion about the policy as things unfold, but it certainly won't be happening tonight. And really, you know, I'm still very much in favor of promoting vaccination for everybody, and that's my personal opinion. I don't think there's really anything further to say unless there's any councillors that wish to make comment at this moment. Seeing none. Ms. Bond, thank you for your presentation.
I would like to say thank you to Debbie Sherwood for being the lone voice of reason in council.
Very good. Thank you, ma'am. Moving on in our agenda, 11.3, we have Mr. Ben Cressman representing Strathallan Capital, I believe. Mr. Cressman, are you there? Mr. Cressman, are you on board? *6 if you are, sir. Okay. We are going to be dealing with this item later on, councillor, so we'll move on. I don't see Mr. Cressman. Ms. Pormancherry, is Mr. Cressman on board? Do you know?
Through you, Worship, there's currently one caller on the call and they are muted. They have to press a *6 to be able to unmute themselves.
Mr. Cressman or anybody representing Strathallan? Oh, there he is. I just see him.
There, yeah.
Okay. Mr. Cressman, are you there, sir?
Good evening, Mr. Mayor. Apologies for that. I didn't
That's
realize my time was from so soon.
Your item is up, sir. So 11.3. You'd like to speak to this? Go right ahead.
Yeah, good evening, Council. Thank you for the time. As you know, the staff report before you, we're seeking approval from Council for minor variance for a additional pylon sign at the Orangeville Shopping Center. We're seeking this as we finalize our redevelopment of the site. We've spent the last year and a half revitalizing the property and bringing new tenants to it. The sign would anchor the west end of the development and provide visibility for the west end retailers towards First Street. We feel the sign's appropriate for this type of development, the size of the property, the investment that we've made at the site, and the proximity to the thoroughfares of First Street and Hanson Boulevard. We recognize that the current bylaw caps properties at 2 sites or 2 signs per site. But we feel that Orangeville Shopping Center is quite unique relative to our competitors, such as the fairgrounds, in that we are one parcel, the fairgrounds being multiple, and as a result, they can apply for multiple signs per individual parcel that makes up that shopping center. So while we know there's a precedent set for two pylon signs per property, we're hoping that you consider our application and allow us to continue to invest in this property and beautify Orangeville. Thank you very much.
All right, sir. Well, thank you for your delegation. Councillors, any questions of Mr. Cressman? I know we're going to deal with this later on. Got Councillor Sherwood and Councillor Andrews. Councillor Sherwood, go right ahead.
Yes, through you, your worship, to Mr. Cressman. So you're mentioning that this is in addition. I'm a more of a visual person. When it comes to the size of this sign, is that the same size as the current signage that's out there, or is this larger?
It's comparable to the existing signs that are on the property.
Okay, so your intention wasn't to replace one of those 2, it's to in addition.
Correct, to add a 3rd sign in addition to the 2 that are at the property.
Okay.
Very good. Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, Mr. Cressman. Thank you very much for the investment in that particular location. It really is commendable to see the enhancements that have been applied to that facility. My question is pertaining to the 3rd proposed sign, and I know we will be discussing this a little bit later on in the agenda. But was there a review on the actual location? Like Councillor Sherwood, I'm also a visual individual, and I've got a pretty good idea of the height of the sign, but in proximity to the exit point that goes onto Hanson Boulevard, there's a rather large hill there, and the topography itself can be somewhat of an obstruction for vehicles that might be heading westbound. And especially with rather heavy pedestrian traffic that does go through that area. I happen to be a resident close by, and regularly there are joggers, there are young people, there are families that are walking back and forth because of the sidewalk that happens to be located there. So I was trying to get an understanding of where that sign was potentially going to be, and have you had any consideration of any possible vehicle obstruction, visual obstructions?
Sure. I'm not sure if I'm able to share my screen with you, but I can.
Madam Clerk, is Mr. Cressman able to share? There we go.
Are you able to see my screen?
Yeah. Yes.
So you're familiar with the property. Where the red arrow is here is where we're proposing to put the sign. As you know, the existing sign is here, and then we have one further down towards Highway 10. The location that we picked, it does have a slight setback from the road, but it would be set back enough to comply with that requirement as to not obstruct traffic's view into the site or those that are leaving the site, either going eastbound or westbound. I'm not sure if that answers your question, Councillor.
It does. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you. Any other questions, councillors? Okay. Yeah, Mr. Cressman, I just wanted to, follow up on what Councillor Sherwood said about, thanking you for the investment that you put into the property. It's quite remarkable, and I know, employment is up significantly in that property because of the new stores that are in there. I think your initiation of renovations in the mall prompted Metro to also do a very nice renovation on the inside of that store. And so, you know, it's all part of economic development. We appreciate it. I remember the hue and cry when people realized that the indoor mall was going away, but you and your company, you know what you're doing in the commercial marketplace, the retail marketplace, and I think it's quite a success what has happened. So congratulations on that. The signage issue is something completely different, and we will be talking about that coming up, but I just wanted to, again, follow up on what Councillor Sherwood said, and I think all councillors agree that it's been a great transformation of that building, and the addition of the new stores has been welcomed, and also the businesses around the back, the Cheer Academy and the other you know, businesses that are going to be put around the back, using up what was, you know, vacant space that you've creatively used for good community use. So it's amazing. Thank you.
Sure.
All right, we're going to move on now, Mr. Cressman. Thank you. We'll be back to this item shortly, but thanks for your delegation tonight. All right, let's move on to item 12.1. This is a memorandum of understanding with the Corporation of the County of Dufferin regarding EV charging stations. Let me just read this. The report CMS 2022-001, EV charging stations memorandum of understanding with the Corporation of the County of Dufferin be received. And the council approve the memorandum of understanding between the County of Dufferin and the town for the provision of an EV station, 2 units at the Alder Street Recreation Parking Lot, and the council pass a bylaw to authorize the entering into an execution of the memorandum of understanding for a period of 3 years effective December 1st, 2021 to November 30th, 2024. Councillors, any questions on this item of staff? No. Can we have, Councillor Andrews, go right ahead.
Thank you, Your Worship. Very quickly to whomever is going to provide some feedback on this. This is regarding the lifespan of the level 2 chargers. I know that Mr. Osmond, we've had over the years, have had a chance to talk a little bit about EV charging stations. I know we have 2 in the downtown core as well. But do you have any speculation of the lifespan, depending, I guess, on the usage? I've had a chance to take a look at the unit itself, and really pleased to see it located where it is, but I'm wondering if you might be able to answer that question.
Through Your Worship to Councillor Andrews, I'm not totally up to date on the actual time frame for the life of the 2 units. I know that the contract is renewable for another 3 years and 3 years after that. So at the end of the day, I would venture to guess that it would be at least 10 years plus. And again, it's about the number of times it gets used. And right now, it is being used. I've reached out and asked the county for up to date data. As the data comes in, it's new, so it's just got started back in December. It's in a great location. It's in high visibility, so we're hoping, of course, once we get back to some normal operations, that more people will use it. It is located, while I'm talking to everybody, it is located in the north parking lot near the back service road to Halder. Easy accessible, and I would hope that it would last 10 plus years, Councillor Andrews. But I will follow up and certainly advise council on time frame.
That's good. And one other question quickly, Mr. Osmond. The chargers we have in the downtown core, they are level 2. Is that correct?
Yes, that's correct.
Great. Thank you.
Very good. I'm sorry, did we have a motion on this or not? No? Okay, can we have a motion on this? Councillor Peters, second by Councillor Andrews. Any other questions, councillors? All in favor? Very good. Thank you. Moving on to 12.2, Town of Orangeville, Dufferin County Winter Maintenance Agreement. Recommendation that the report INS 2022-09, Town of Orangeville and Dufferin County Winter Maintenance Agreement be received, and the council pass a bylaw to enter into an agreement with Dufferin County for winter maintenance of roads as identified in report INS 2022-009. Can we have a motion to put this on the table? Councillor Sherwood, second by Councillor Post. Any questions of staff, councillors? No. All in favor? Oh, Gary, you wish to speak to this? Sorry, Mr.
No, Your
Costa?
Worship, I apologize. I just wanted to take a minute and introduce Gagan Sandhu. Gagan is our manager of Public Works, and he authored this report and the next one. So I wanted to take the opportunity to bring him to council, introduce him, to say hi to everybody, and if you have questions of Mr. Sandhu, he'd be pleased to help you or give you an overview of the reports.
Great, thank you. Welcome, Mr. Sandhu. I know you've been on board for a little while now, but it's nice to see you in our council meeting. Just wondering, how many shared roads do we have with Dufferin County? Do you know roughly the number?
For maintenance, especially winter maintenance, this is the only stretch of the road that we swap the winter maintenance arrangement, with the county.
Okay. And which road is it specifically again?
Riddell Road.
This is Riddell. Okay. Right. Very good. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Your Worship. If I may, I thought we also did County Road 23. Do we not own half of that road and the county owns the other half and we share that, or am I mistaken?
Is that Beeline?
Yes, it would be Beeline. Yes.
Mr. Sandhu.
I am not aware of that. If you see in the report those two sketches, it clearly identifies the ownership of the road and the winter maintenance aspect of that road.
Right.
If I may, Your Worship, just one last question if I could. So this year, so that road is the end of Orangeville on the west end, and it abuts up against Settlers Creek and Paula Court, that sort of thing. I was just curious, there's a snow fence that goes up there each year. And this year, for the first time ever, I was getting calls from concerned residents who are wanting to have that snow fence go up. And I was wondering, who does that? Is that an Orangeville responsibility, or is that a County of Dufferin responsibility, or another municipality? And what time frame is it supposed to go up by? Because it did seem quite late this year. And why it's important is because the snow drifts across that road in a significant way.
It is the town authority staff.
Oh, it is. Okay.
Yeah.
And by which date, sir, does it go up?
Usually we do let some sort of frost set into the ground so that it's easy to drive the stake. And once the stakes are driven, they are there. I would say beginning of December.
Okay.
Yeah. I recall asking Mr. Jones about that in the past, Councillor Taylor, and I think December 1st was the target for this. Yeah. It
was interesting to me because I've seen them there for all the time I've been in town, but it never occurred to me when they went up or who did it. And it was the first time I'd gotten questions about that. So I'll know for next year. And thank you for your help with that.
Very good.
Thank you.
Hey, I'm getting feedback again. Sorry, folks. So we had a motion on that, I believe. Yes, all in favor? All right, Mr. Sandhu, thank you. All the best. All right, moving on to 12.3. This is the on-warn mutual aid agreement. Recommendation that report INS 2022-010 on-warn mutual aid agreement be received, and the council pass a bylaw to enter into an agreement for mutual aid with Ontario Wastewater Agency Response Network. Can we have a motion to put this on the table? Deputy Mayor McIntosh and then Councillor Andrews. Councillor Andrews, you wish to ask a question?
I do, very quickly, Your Worship, and Mr. Sandhu, nice to have you join us this evening. Would you be able to give us an example of what could transpire if you're going to end up having under this agreement, staff that could be reassigned or out to help another municipality? Just like to know what type of example you might be able to share.
For sure. Just for example, we are planning on rehabilitating our standpipe. That's a spring project, but in order to understand the hydraulic modeling of the water distribution, before we actually get into that project, we are simulating, or we will be simulating the standpipe closure over the course of 2 days starting February 16th, this Wednesday. just to see if we take the standpipe offline, what are the implications of it on the pressure side of things in the distribution network. And it has been quite a while since, so taking the standpipe off the distribution involves closing the wall down, and it has been quite a while since that wall has been closed down. There is doubt in the operator's mind, the supervisor's mind, that because the valve has not been operated, it may not close, or if it closes, it may not open, or if it will break down during closure. As it is an example, we have sourced the part just to take care of that contingency. But what if in this pandemic we were not able to secure the wall, or in any unplanned work like repairing a water main break, we are out of parts? We can quickly reach out to other utilities, water and wastewater utilities. Usually they keep parts in stock just as we do. So if that happens, we can quickly source out to not only our part supplier, but to the contributing water and wastewater utilities also, and get the part. It streamlines the logistics. We don't need to be in a declared emergency to avail of this assistance. It can be anything outside of emergency also.
That's a great explanation, and I know that sometimes emergencies don't necessarily dictate exactly how we respond. I think that even going through a simulation, as you're going through this coming up this week, helps out tremendously. So it's actually a little more than a simulation, but at the same time, if you're looking for specific parts to support the repair if necessary, and again, I'm talking about an area that I don't have any experience in, other than, of course, the expertise we have on staff that provides us that information. But I'm glad that you were able to provide that explanation to myself and the members of council. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Andrews and Mr. Sandhu. All right, any further questions at this moment? We have the motion on the floor. All in favor? Passes unanimously. Moving on to 12.4, Provincial Transit Gas Tax Funding Agreement. This is a recommendation that the report CPS 2022-007, Provincial Transit Gas Tax Funding Agreement, be received, and the Council pass a bylaw authorizing the Mayor and Treasurer to sign a letter of agreement with the Ministry of Transportation for 2021 and 2022 funding. We have a motion, please. Councillor Taylor, second by Councillor Sherwood. Any questions of staff, councillors? No, all in favor? Thank you. Moving on to 12.5, this is the sign variance application that was brought forward by Mr. Cressman earlier. A recommendation that the report CPS 2022-011 regarding sign variance application SBLP Orangeville Mall Inc. be received, and the council deny a variance to the sign bylaw to permit an additional ground sign measuring 7.5 meters by 3 meters at 150 First Street. Do we have a motion on this, please? Councillor Post, seconded by Councillor Peters. All right. Any questions, councillors, on this item of staff? Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. Mr. Johnson, nice to have you join us as well. I'm aware that the report is asking for council to deny the variance. Was there any more, as per the question I posed to Mr. Cressman earlier, was there any investigation, be that from the town's perspective, on the possibility of any visual obstruction? Because I know, as per Mr. Cressman's visual location on the map itself, where it's going to potentially be located, I know that area well, and I know that there are some sightline concerns that I would have as a frequent patron of that location, looking towards the west, as well as the vehicle traffic that is heading westbound, say from First Street. Was there any town investigation from your department on potential obstruction, or I'd like to hear just a little. Thank you.
Certainly, through your worship to Councillor Andrews. At the time of the variance that was submitted, we initially looked at the drawings that were supplied and it met the minimum setback requirements. However, because we were denying the application on its face, we didn't pursue anything further. However, if council wishes to allow the variance to go forward, we would obviously consult with public works staff to confirm any sort of vehicular or pedestrian obstructions.
Great. Councillor Sherwood and then Councillor Taylor.
Yes, through you, your worship, to Mr. Johnston. So staff is recommending to deny this. I would assume, obviously, based on because our current sign bylaw only allows for 2. That would be number one reason. I think Councillor Andrews has addressed the safety issue as far as visually. Is that really the only reason why staff is denying this, just because of the current reading of the bylaw?
Through your worship to Councillor Sherwood, part and parcel to that is correct. We are denying the application due to the parameters of the sign bylaw. However, there are other methods of advertising that are permitted on the property that we would recommend to the applicant as well to seek if they so choose to, that being wall signs, portable temporary signs are available to them.
Right.
So there really isn't any reason to really deny it other than the current bylaw doesn't allow 2 signs.
3 signs.
Yeah, it only allows 2.
Right.
Okay.
Just to follow up on Councillor Sherwood's question there, Mr. Johnson, the size of that sign is permissible if the quantity was 3 rather than 2 on that site?
Yes, your worship, it would be permissible based on that size parameters.
Okay. Thank you. Councillor Taylor, and then we've got Deputy Mayor McIntosh and Councillor Peters wish to ask questions. Councillor Taylor.
Thank you, Worship. I don't wish to ask a question. I merely wish to make a statement, and that is, I remember when I went to counselor school and it was run by Gail Campbell. Former Councillor Campbell told me if you're going to vote in a certain way, you should provide an explanation as to why you're doing so. And I just wanted to say, I will be voting against the proposal. However, I would like to thank Mr. Cressman for his investment in our community. And to me, the sign bylaw is something that is always being challenged. I know it's not perfect, but I certainly appreciate past councils putting this in, and I think it's important that we stick to it. And that's how I'll be voting this evening. And I just wanted to make sure I provided explanation for that prior to the vote.
Thank you, Councillor. Deputy Mayor.
I believe Councillor Peters was ahead of me.
I'm sorry, Councillor Peters.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Through you, Mr. Mayor, I just also wanted to make my sort of opinion known on the matter. I also support the sign bylaw, you know, given its perhaps its imperfections, but I'd rather have a less clutter sort of situation, and that frontage is far less busy. Granted, it may, you know, grow a little bit, but certainly the First Street side I think is more important, and that's where the main signs are, and I think that, you know, does a great job of advertising that property.
Very good. Thank you, Councillor Peters. Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Yes, thank you. I know I'll be going against the grain here, but I support this sign. In my opinion, this is a unique development, and it's a unique situation. It's not like the other ones. It's a mall, and the more advertising they get, the better for the businesses in there. And there's a lot of new businesses, and you know, I don't know if the current signage will allow all the businesses to actually advertise on those signs, but I would support the 3rd sign. I know it goes against the bylaw, but again, to me, this is a unique building. Thank you.
Thank you, Deputy Mayor. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, your worship. I like the look of the sign, the proposed sign, and where they are considering locating it. I too am struggling because I want to comply with the bylaw. Is there any particular reason why, and maybe Mr. Cressman will answer this, they cannot remove one of the signs? That, like, why do they need 2 signs on First Street? Why could they just not have one centrally on First Street and then have the other one on Hanson? I don't understand why they feel the need for 2. Is it because one sign's full and they need to advertise on the other, or could they not just make one sign? Is Mr. Cressman available?
Mr. Cressman, are you there, sir? He may not be.
Do you have you ever had that discussion, Mr. Johnston, with the developers?
Through your worship to Councillor Sherwood, no, we have not. Mr. Cressman was using a sign company as the applicant to the sign variance, so there was no conversations had with Strathallan at that time. So.
Right. Well, I'll weigh in now. You know, I did spend a while in the sign industry, and I can tell you that a property of this size, you know, frontage wise, would typically, in most municipal sign bylaws, allow 2 signs on that large frontage on First Street. And the frontage on Hanson is quite large as well. So my experience throughout North America would be that our bylaw is tighter than most on this issue. But I'm not a big fan personally of the large multi-tenant pylon sign. If we drive up First Street, there's an awful lot of clutter there. And I think when the sign bylaw gets addressed, and I inquired about it today, it's still 2 years away before our clerk's department have it lined up for a review. But my opinion is less is more with signage. I think the clutter that happens with these multi-tenant pylon signs is not necessarily helpful. And I think from, you know, as you're driving along Hanson, the wall signs that each of those individual stores will have will be easily visible from there. You know, Tim Hortons is going on the corner. They'll have a nice bright red Tim Hortons sign. There'll be no, you know, misunderstanding about what stores are on that elevation. So I think my thoughts at this moment are to accept what the staff report as it is, but that in 2 years that maybe we revisit large sites like this and allow a third sign, but a smaller one, you know. And I think a small sign in height, maybe one of those electronic signs where multiple messages can be played, you know, that might be a more appropriate sign for that site. But I think I'm going to be voting in favor of the report, which unfortunately is a denial at this moment. Councillor Andrews.
Just one more train of thought, and this is as per the recommendation in the staff report regarding the wall signs. We're on a very similar wavelength there, Your Worship, and I think you know, the point that you have looking at this in a couple of years' time makes a lot of sense. You know, the idea of having that visual identification of those businesses as you're proceeding down Hanson will be more than adequate. At the same time, with some of the other businesses that we're aware of that are going to be moving into that location on Hanson, if I'm not mistaken, there will be a drive-through of some sort, not naming the business's name, but there will be signage there that will be quite visible from Hanson as well. So I don't think it's going to impede in any way highlighting those businesses that are on site. So I will also be voting in favor of this denial as well.
All right. Any further comments or questions, councillors, before we have a vote on this? No. All right. So just to be clear, voting in favor of this is a denial of the variance application and turning down the request. All those in favor? And those denying or in opposition? Councillor Sherwood and Councillors McIntosh are in opposition. All right, that does not, that is passed, that report. All right, moving on to correspondence. We've got quite a raft of correspondence here. I'll just read them out. A proclamation of Heritage Week, a proclamation of Menstrual Health Day, a proclamation of Nonprofit Sector Appreciation Week, a proclamation request for Parental Alienation Awareness Day, another proclamation request for South Asians in Dufferin, the North Dufferin Agricultural Community Task Force proposal to quarry below water table report. We've got some correspondence from the town of Grand Valley regarding multiple municipal turbine working group. Again, town of Grand Valley, postponement of the province-wide assessment. Township of East Garifraxa, a draft land needs analysis report. A report which was quite comprehensive if councillors looked at that, from Ms. Rivard in her grade 8 class. Very nicely done. This was opposing the Highway 413 and Bradford bypass proposals. Also, a Ministry of Municipal Affairs and Housing Affordability feedback request. And we've got Services and Housing in the Province Crisis Bed Program. That was following up on our Men's Homelessness Committee recommendations and the possibility for a crisis bed program. And then we've got, I guess, a correspondence from Steve Coolin regarding our vaccination policy. Councillors, are there any of these items that you wish to speak to before we receive these items? Councillor Post.
I'm just really glad that you highlighted Ms. Rivard's correspondence. I was going to do the same. I just wanted to send kudos to the class for all their hard work. I really enjoyed reading all their pros and cons and different thoughts on both of those highways. They're extremely crucial pieces of infrastructure that are proposed, and it's really great to see a teacher really engaging the grade 8 students in that discussion and in that discourse. So I just wanted to give comment of thank you to Ms. Rivard for sending that on to us. I really appreciate it.
Right, and Madam Deputy Clerk, I just wanted to ask you a question. We've got 13.2, 13.3, 13.4, and 13.5 are proclamation requests. So I guess we need to have a separate motion to approve those proclamation requests. Is that correct?
That's correct, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, so why don't we start with that, 13.2 through 13.5. Could we have a motion to approve those proclamation requests? Councillor Andrews, Councillor Taylor as a seconder. Any comments or questions on any of those proclamations? Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
Well, I don't believe you need a proclamation request for the nonprofit week because it looks like the proclamation is already included.
Well, we've never had this in front of council before. Is that right, Deputy Clerk? So that's why it started. It says proclamation request. So
even though you've already done the proclamation.
I guess.
Okay.
In advance, yes, but we still need as a council to approve that proclamation request. So, any further questions on those 4 items? All right, all in favor of approving those proclamations? Okay, thank you. And then moving on to the rest of the correspondence, that's 13.1 through, and then 13.6 through 13.13. Can we have a separate motion to receive all of those documents? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, second by Councillor Taylor. Anybody wish to speak to any of those items? No. Yes, Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship. I'm not sure if I was going to do this now or in new business, but 13.1 is Proclamation for Heritage Week, and I just want to remind the community that next week is Heritage Week, and our Heritage Orangeville Committee we took on the fabulous project of making banners this year to recognize some of the advancements of Broadway over the years. So I encourage the people to go downtown in front of the library and have a look at some of these fabulous photos that we were able to dig out of the archives, and it really tells the story of our beautiful Broadway.
Yes, thanks, Councillor Sherwood. Okay. So we have a motion now to receive those items other than 13 through 13.5. All in favor? Okay, thank you. Moving on to item 14. This is a recommendation that the minutes of the following meetings be received. December 16th, 2021 Heritage Orangeville minutes. December 15th, 2021 Men's Homelessness Committee minutes. The October 19th, 2020 Orangeville Police Service Board minutes. November 16th, 2021 Orangeville Police Service Board minutes. Can we have a motion to receive those minutes, please? Councillor Post, second by Councillor Taylor. Any comments or questions on those minutes? All in favor? Okay, thank you. All right, moving on to item 15. So let me read this out, folks, again, and then we can have a discussion about it. But this is a motion that came out of our Men's Homelessness Committee. Whereas the Town of Orangeville Council supported the recommendations of the town's Men's Homelessness Committee, whereas Dufferin County, County Council Health and Human Services has supported the recommendations of the Town of Orangeville Men's Health Homelessness Committee. Whereas Town of Caledon Mayor Alan Thompson has agreed to support this initiative and bring the issue to the attention of Town of Caledon Council and the Region of Peel. Whereas Dufferin County Director of Community Services Anna McGregor has recommended a crisis care bed facility rather than a men's homeless shelter. Whereas Dufferin County and Northern Caledon are underserved in healthcare resources to deal with mental health and addiction. Whereas Services and Housing in the province, who operates crisis care bed facilities in Mississauga and Brampton, has expressed support for this initiative in Orangeville. A letter was received today by SHIP, again indicating that full support of this initiative. Therefore, be it resolved that the Town of Orangeville appropriate and reserve the fire hall at 10 Dawson Road and approximately 1 acre of land from the larger parcel of land, the creation of a crisis care bed facility to be run by SHIP. Proceeding with this appropriation will be conditional on the following: securing operational support from Ontario Health, securing zoning approval from the Town of Orangeville, providing that reasonable value can be recovered via lease or sale of the property with the operator, providing that approvals can be secured by all stakeholders, including Credit Valley Conservation, and also, due to the ongoing crisis in affordable housing and the fact that Habitat for Humanity has targeted Orangeville for an affordable housing build project, be it resolved that town staff be directed to determine the feasibility of severing an approximately 1 acre parcel of land from the larger fire hall property for the purpose of a Habitat for Humanity build project. The likely type of residential property to be built will be stacked townhouses. So this is a motion that's co-sponsored by Councillors Andrews, Sherwood, and myself. Could we have a motion here to get this on the table to discuss it? Councillor Sherwood, seconded by Councillor Andrews. Councillor Post and then Councillor Taylor. Councillor Post.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to give kudos. I'm absolutely thrilled to support this motion. I want to give credit to everybody who's taken part in having this really important discussion. I know that solving these issues is not easy. It's an extremely complex, very complex issue, and I'm so glad to see the partnerships that have happened and the thought that's been put into making sure that this is going to be a great service that is tangible, that can be sustained, and I think is going to have some really great partners to make sure that our community is serviced appropriately going forward. So I'm absolutely happy to support this, and thank you to everybody for all their hard work on this initiative.
Thank you, Councillor Post. Councillor Taylor.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. To yourself, Councillor Andrews and Councillor Sherwood. Again, I echo Councillor Post's comments. I think this is a great benevolent enterprise for certain. I'm not sure I totally understand item C in terms of the cost, the sale, the lease. And I'm hoping to get some clarification on that. And then the other piece is the severing of the 1 acre parcel of land and how that would work. And I guess my confusion with that portion of it is we had such difficulty before as a council trying to refurbish the fire hall that was there because of that property and the CBC and the issues with it. So I don't have an issue with the ideation. I think the ideation is benevolent for certain. I just don't understand how it will come to fruition given the impact. So again, question C, just about the money piece and the last portion about the parcel of land, given its difficulties.
Thanks. Councillor. Feedback again. I'm sorry. So, Councillor Taylor, Councillors Andrews and Sherwood and I had a meeting with SHIP CEO Leslie Nagoda and SHIP CFO Thomas DiCarlo on Friday afternoon, and those questions were asked. They have 2 other facilities, one in Brampton and one in Mississauga, and in both cases they're leasing those properties. So that is likely what would happen is the town would maintain ownership and come up with a fair market lease rate for the space that they would be renting from us, which would probably render the severance of the fire hall off of the 9 acre parcel moot. If we're going to maintain ownership and be a landlord, then we don't need to sever the fire hall off the larger property. Now, when you go down to the last paragraph, talking about Habitat for Humanity, we've looked at the Credit Valley Conservation mapping system, and there is a pocket of land of approximately 1 acre off Lackey Drive on the backside that is not in their jurisdiction. So that's kind of the sweet spot on that 9-acre parcel. The reason that again, this is my understanding, the reason that the fire hall expansion proposal was turned down was because of the nature of the use, which was emergency services, and that the CVC did not want to have our emergency services impacted by potential flooding, because they're the people we need to respond when there is a flood, not to be underwater. And, you know, although there is some, you know, there was some back and forth. Obviously, Deputy Mayor was involved in that facility for many years, and he wasn't sure that there was any water on that site at any time. Nevertheless, the CVC does their mapping based on 100-year flood lines and things like that, and they essentially rejected the use of emergency services. But that back parcel of 1 acre, I think, can be utilized. And again, you know, this is sort of conditional on going through and talking to the various stakeholders. But I think we need, I think municipal councils need to get engaged in the housing crisis directly. And if we can somehow give a path for Habitat for Humanity to do a build project here in Orangeville, I think everybody would be very supportive of that. I know they get a great deal of community support wherever they do these build projects. And, you know, again, you know, there's some environmental assessments that need to be done, clearly. You know, can we accommodate the snow dumping that happens on that property still, or do we have to find another place if this in fact goes forward? There's a lot of questions to be asked, but I think Habitat, through the letter that was received, they're quite interested in that site. So if we can make it happen with all of the necessary studies that would have to happen to clear the way for residential development there, then I think we need to start here. And it may get derailed, but it is a good spot. I think it's, again, it's close to social services, it's close to grocery, it's even walking distance to many jobs in our industrial area. So it's a good spot, I think. Anyway, does that answer more or less your question, sir? Okay. Councillor Peters and then Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Thanks, Mr. Mayor. Through you, I definitely applaud the concept. I'll be supporting the motion. A couple of questions or I guess minor concerns I have in looking at the division and the proposal. I guess, could you comment on how stacked townhomes were arrived at and whether or not that it's a bit premature to jump into a certain building type, or whether a multi-unit might work? And I'll just add another one before, if you don't mind. The second piece I just worry about is the connectivity. And while it is very close to a lot of those services, it may be very difficult to get there. And have there been thoughts on that?
Right. This came from the conversation with Habitat directly. We did talk about multi-unit apartments. Their preference right now is to use the stacked townhouse model as an ownership model. They're reviewing all of their processes right now because of the incredible increase in value of real estate. It's really throwing things into disarray to some extent, right? So, but at this moment, the stacked townhouse is a less expensive style of home ownership. If you look at the new building at 17 Center Street, right beside 7-Eleven, that's a stacked townhouse project. There are 4 levels in that building. You've got sort of a basement level and then a walk-up level, and then when at that walk-up level, if you drive in there, you'll see a number of doors. Every other door on that upper level is a stairway up to a 2-level 3rd and 4th floor. It's very interesting, but that's a stacked townhouse concept. And of course, 5 Armstrong Street is also a stacked townhouse project. It's very similar. It's just a type of of real estate that would be less onerous in terms of mortgage payment and that type of thing. That's why that's what they suggested. But all of that would have to be worked out through Habitat and in town planning, and come up with the right solution. What was the other question, Councillor Peters? I'm sorry.
Just the access. You know, it's close to a lot of things, but you know, I think part of the project needs to include pathways or some means, or you know, of getting places. Not everybody that's there is gonna have access to a car.
I would hope that there could be a path from that back area through the, you know, the quote unquote wetland area, if there could be one developed there. Is it possible for our transit system to take a loop in there and possibly have a stop at that building? You know, they certainly, the transit system does travel along Centennial. Lackey Drive is only, you know, 200-300 meters long, I think. So perhaps they could come in there. But it is, it's walkable to downtown. It's certainly walkable to Freshco if there was a path to get through there. So yeah, I think all of that has to be worked out yet. Great. Deputy Mayor McIntosh.
Thank you, Your Worship. I just want to say I'm in full support of this. I think it's a great idea. We do have a ways to go, but it's a good start. Also, you're absolutely correct in your assessment of why we can build in that area. The fire hall is an emergency service, so that has different requirements than, say, stacked townhouses. But whether they are allowed or not, I don't know for sure. But obviously, that's something you guys will check into. But it was because it was an emergency service is why we weren't allowed to expand.
Yeah. I've also looked on the CVC website, and they do have a document about flood-proofing buildings. They do allow buildings to be built that are quasi floodplain as long as the building is flood-proofed, and that could mean just, you know, a ramp up to the doorway, you know, of 12 inches or 18 inches, because they've measured what the flood potential is. And this is what they have their data on. And as long as you solve that potential flooding issue, they do allow things to be built on floodplain. And, you know, a good portion of, you know, I would say Eastern Broadway is on a floodplain. You know, if you look at the CVC mapping system, you'll see a lot of those commercial buildings are built on floodplain. Councillor Taylor and then Councillor Andrews.
Yes, thank you, Your Worship. The ideation and your explanation of what would be done at the end of Lackey Drive makes perfect sense to me. I love the idea of putting something of that use so close to the food bank as well. There's just so many synergies there that make a lot of sense. Just two further questions, and I know we're not all the way to Bright, but if we could just entertain these for just a quick second. Two thoughts. One is, if the end of Lackey Drive was no longer available for snow, could we not simply take that snow and put it on the fire property? And you know, it's quite an expansive property. It would be away from the building. There's lots of room back there, so that's just a suggestion. So Lackey Drive gets preserved and it's more useful, and you know, the fire hall becomes something different. The second thought is, I'd like a question, and I don't know who could answer it. Maybe it's town staff, maybe it's the committee of council, but I've been in that fire hall numerous times, and upstairs I think could be, you know, quite interesting for people and would suit the needs that the committee has talked about. Downstairs is problematic. It's a bit odd, right? Because it's a garage, and when we originally talked about, wow, what would go in there if we repurposed the fire hall, and one of the ideas was we'd sell it to perhaps a truck mechanic place or a mechanic's garage, and they'd be able to do some refurbishing and vehicles would come in and out of there. I'm just curious if the committee had thought about what would happen at the bottom portion. And my last thought is, and I feel like I'm hoping that Grant Peters or Councillor Peters would support me on this, but that parcel of land, it's such a large parcel of land, and we know it's useless because of the CVC and the flooding. Is it potential to retree that area to a certain extent as well, and just, you know, make it a little more beautiful than what it is? Candidly, no offense to my friends in the fire hall, but it is a bit of an eyesore on occasion. It'd be nice if we could do something with it. So those are my 3 comments. And I guess my last one is thank you again to the committee. I think you've done a wonderful job here, and I'm very appreciative of your work.
Thank you, Councillor Taylor. Before I answer Councillor Taylor on the ground floor, Councillor Peters, do you have a comment on the potential for reforestation of that wetland? Is it possible to plant in there?
I mean, I don't have that answer handy. We're always looking for sites in town for the tree planting efforts and for, adding more species and densifying the canopy. So I'll certainly take that question over to CVC and on that, the tree planting side of things. And if there's potential, we'll put it on the list.
Yeah, very good. So Councillor Taylor, there's been some discussion at Dufferin Board of Trade on getting what was called Dream Dufferin, which is a skilled trades conference. And it's been targeted for mid-September, again, to try and, I guess, destigmatize skilled trades as a career path, both parents and young people. And out of this, the idea of a skilled trades training center came up. And could the ground floor of the fire hall be used to train a couple of 2-3 different skilled trades? So that might be a complementary use there. It's something that was talked about in the last week or so by our committee. I know Councillor Sherwood and Andrews and I had a chat about that. There needs to be either a union organization or a community college, such as Georgian or Humber, partner on something like that. But they do have these training centers in Southern Ontario. Why not in Orangeville? And it might be a good use there. So that's one thought. I'm sure there'll be many other suggestions that come forward, and we'll deal with them as they come. But again, town of Orangeville would likely be a landlord there or some sort of agency or operation there that would have to be compatible with the crisis care facility. So, Councillor Andrews.
Thank you, Your Worship. I truly thank all the members of council who have echoed their comments regarding this. I know a lot of time discussion has taken place. Councillor Sherwood, the mayor, and myself, we're so delighted that we've come to this point, but still a lot of work has to be obviously implemented in the months and maybe years to come. But to the point that Councillor Taylor had highlighted, the synergies of this location really warranted the outcome at this point on what we're looking to consider. Some ideas, as you're all speaking, the possibility of not only reforesting, but even a parquet could be part of that at some point. I know that Councillor Sherwood and the mayor and I have spoken about even the concept of some flex space on that first floor. I know it's an inventory of space that the town has, and looking at STEM as one of those areas of consideration with either a trades union or a community college would be under thought. But at the same time, you have other options that have yet to even been discussed. But I also want to tip my hat to the organizations of SHIP and also Habitat for Humanity. The conversations we've had have been nothing but professional, upfront, and also enriching from an education perspective. I'm so pleased that they have provided their letters of support for this motion. And, there's a lot more discussion to take place, but I look forward to what transpires. As the Councillor Post had indicated, there is a desperation for affordable housing, and I think conceptually we've been able to find something that hopefully will end up supporting that for our community, not only for today, but also for the years to come.
Right, and I want to give one more thank you to Director of Community Services for Dufferin County, Anna McGregor. It was her that enlightened us on the concept of crisis care bed facility as what we needed here rather than a men's shelter. And so as has been explained, the depth of programming, diversion programming for those who suffer mental health and drug or alcohol addiction is the difference between a men's shelter and this crisis care bed facility. And in the conversation with SHIP, if we agree to this tonight, they would start putting together the application to Ontario Health to get the funding. We were made aware that the funding is about $100,000 per bed per year. The plan would be for 8 beds on the second floor of this facility. So they were looking for $800,000 in funding from Ontario Health. They also told us that Ontario Health would be open to some construction costs, one time only, to get the facility going, because that was a question that we had as a committee. How do you convert the building? Who pays for that? But it looks like Ontario Health would contribute. We also have, the idea that a capital fundraising campaign could be successful in our town, going to our service clubs and maybe having a golf tournament or a gala dinner or something like that to help fundraise if necessary. Councillor Sherwood.
Yes, Your Worship, to my fellow councillors, thank you so much for throwing your support on this. My fellow Councillor Andrews and the Mayor Brown, when we first initiated and took the directive from council to come back with a men's homelessness shelter, once we got into this, we realized that it went much farther and broader than that, and we feel that this is much more satisfying in the needs with a crisis care bed. We also have a phenomenal community that we know will help get behind us on this. We can also be a really good role model for this initiative. We know that the homelessness isn't just in Orangeville; it's all around our Dufferin County, and we know that people in Dufferin County will likely come to the urban community being Orangeville, so they're likely would be used broader within Dufferin County. So again, thank you so much, and I think this is one of the best initiatives we can ever put forward, and fingers crossed that we can get that commitment from Ontario Health and hopefully have our MPP Sylvia Jones go to bat for us.
Right. Very good. Okay, if there's no further questions or comments, we need to vote on this. We had a motion here, Councillor Sherwood and Andrews, all in favor? All right, thank you, councillors. All right, let's move on to notices of motion at meeting. Councillors, are any notices of motion? New business. Anybody wish to speak to new business? No. Okay. Lisa. Councillor Post.
Thank you very much, Mr. Mayor. I just wanted to let the council and public know that just recently we've had the opportunity to install new murals at the Alder Street walking track, and they are fantastic. We're just in the midst of unveiling them, and when you get a chance, just go for a walk through there and have a look at some really fabulous local art. They look absolutely spectacular, and it's really brightened up some pretty dull walls in that walking track. So please go have a look.
Right. I wanted to ask Mr. Brennan, we had some good news today from Premier Ford on the, the reopening of facilities, the relaxation of the mandatory vaccine. So it's going to bring us now to the question, where are we with our hybrid model for council chambers, and when can we get back to in-person meetings? Mr. Brennan, do you have an update? I'm sorry to, surprise you with that, but I know you probably got some sort of an answer for us.
Your Worship, thank you. I did meet with the MEG group and the leadership team to discuss this. Actually, this morning, Ms. McKinney is going back through with her staff about all the parts for the hybrid model work that was being done in council chambers. At this time, they're still waiting for parts. The announcement, as great as it was by Premier Ford and our Chief Medical Officer of Health, we still have problems with supply chains and everything else. So with that said, though, we're looking at sort of a workaround to be able to provide a hybrid solution at the council chambers. We were looking at the dates that the province had announced to relax the number of people that can be in social gatherings. We must still remember, though, the wearing of masks will be with us for some time in a public venue, and I think that it would be pertinent for us to be able to provide that option to some people to take the hybrid model. So I don't have a date specifically, but we'll get into the March timeframe, and hopefully, if all keeps going on track, we do see some normalcy here, or back to what we used to call normal, and start seeing more people gathering together in our council chambers and other places.
So would April be a target then for you, do you think, Mr. Brennan, or what are your thoughts?
Well, Your Worship, what we'll probably do is come back with a quick update, maybe at the next council meeting. Our intent as we get back to normal, it's get back to as much normal as possible. And if that means that we're able to sit down in council chambers and council is willing to sit in council chambers and feels comfortable with it, we are all for that.
Okay, well, I'm wondering maybe if next council meeting in a couple of weeks, if we could have a deeper dive into that maybe and discuss it, that would be great. I think we're all looking forward to that in the coming weeks. Yeah.
Absolutely, fully agree, Your Worship.
Okay, very good. All right, any other new business, councillors? No. Okay, good. So moving on to question period now. Ms. Porman-Cherry, do you know if we have anybody that wishes to speak during question period?
Through your worship, there's still as one caller on the line.
Okay.
That they can press the *6 to unmute. And
right. Caller, *6, if you could do that and give us your name and where you live, and then go ahead and ask your question.
Good evening.
Good evening. Yes, your name, please.
My name is Jackie Asada.
Oh, hi, Jackie.
I'm not a resident of the town, but I've been, Your Worship, good evening, and good evening, Orangeville councillors. As I said, my name is Jackie Asada. I've been following the council meeting tonight, and I don't know if this is appropriate for me to say in question period, but I'm with Habitat for Humanity Halton Mississauga Dufferin. And I would just like to thank council for the approval of the motion. Your Worship and council members, it was a very progressive motion that was brought forward tonight, and Habitat is committed to working with you and the stakeholders around this project to deliver affordable housing projects in Orangeville. And certainly this would be an opportunity to do that. And we'd be happy to work closely with you and members of your community and staff to ensure that we deliver something that's right for the area.
Very good. Thank you, Ms. Asada. We're looking forward to working with you and your team going forward. But thank you for your comments tonight. Appreciate it.
You're welcome, Your Worship.
Okay,
and thank you again on behalf of the board of Habitat for Humanity Halton Mississauga Dufferin.
All right, thank you. Are there any other callers that wish to speak tonight? Please press *6 and let us know. All right, we'll move along then. Item 19 is regarding bylaws. Okay, so I'm just going to read here. Note the bylaw listed at item 19.5 was authorized by council on February the 7th by resolution 2022-041. There is a recommendation that the bylaws listed below be read 3 times and finally passed. So that's 19.1 through 19.6. Can we have a motion to approve those bylaws, council? Deputy Mayor McIntosh, seconded by Councillor Sherwood. Any comments on or questions? All in favor? All right, and a motion to adjourn, please. Councillor Post, Councillor Taylor, all in favor? All right, folks, thanks very much. Have a good evening.
Good night, everyone.
Good night, all.
Good night.
Good night.
Good night, everyone.